My name's spelled wrong there, but it's fine.
I'm sorry. It's okay. Okay, so I just want to introduce myself really quickly. My name is Kristen Lansdowne. I'm a library associate of adult fiction at Oak Lawn Public Library, as well as a library intern at Relay Graduate School of Education. I'm a 2017-2018 Spectrum Scholar, and I'm a current student at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, finishing up my MS-LIS this summer. So you can refer to me as a librarian despite my title. Thank you. All right, so I wrote down what I was going to say because my memory isn't working well this week. So the experience I'm going to share isn't necessarily bullying or harassment that I myself experienced, but I think once I tell the story, it might bring it back around for you all. So back in August of 2018, I was walking back to our workroom from the stacks, and I saw a black man and his son coming toward me, and the man was saying, "I'm going to report you, I'm going to report you." And followed behind him was a white security officer. So, I'm walking, and he stopped me, and he asked if I work here. And I said yes, and so he proceeded to tell me that this white security officer had been following him and his son around on multiple occasions, and that at one point he told his son not to touch the books. So because he's upset, he's speaking in a loud voice, right? But he was not yelling at me, to make that clear. So at this point, the white security guard was standing a little behind the man and his son as I listened to him tell his story. So for my background, I have a master's of education in counseling. So I'm a trained counselor. So empathetic, compassionate, and non-judgmental listening is one of the strengths that I bring to this field. So unfortunately, that is not the case for the security guard. And so the security guard exclaims, "He's lying." Now, I don't know about how you all grew up, but I know for myself, being called a liar is like tantamount to being called out of your name. So that is like an escalation of the situation that's already occurring. Outside of that, it definitely lacks the essence of professionalism one would expect when working with the public. So the security officer also, at this point, requests backup on his walkie-talkie. This was when my heart started to race. Because already in our current news cycle during that time, there was instances of people calling the police on black folks for just existing in spaces. And I want to stress that that is a dangerous approach. So after calling for backup, which in our building is maintenance at that time, he threatened to call the police if the man doesn't leave. And so just to reiterate, the man isn't like even yelling at him. He's literally just talking to me, trying to tell me the situation that's going on, and that he feels like he's been followed. And so the patron is still saying that the security guard is racist and that he follows him around the library. His son, who is probably no more than 12 years old, is imploring his father to come on so that they can leave. So you want to imagine a situation where there's this young child like pulling at his dad's arm, like, come on, let's just go. But the father is trying to tell me like that this is happening to him. So one of the other librarians came over to ask what is happening. And again, the man tries to explain that security has been following him around the library. Security says, "I told him to put on his shoes." And so the other librarian said, "Well, you do have to wear shoes." And the patron is like, "You don't understand. Like, I'm trying to tell you that I'm being followed around here." So at this point, there's now 3 people talking to this man. Myself, the security guard, and the other librarian. So he left from there, eventually, just completely fed up with the situation. And I had been having extremely bad back pain that day, and so I was just overwhelmed with emotion, and I just started crying, and it was real ugly. And so I started crying, and I went to my supervisor and I relayed the incident to her. And luckily, I have a very supportive department, and any concerns that I've had are always taken seriously and addressed immediately, which I'm super grateful for, because not all librarians from underrepresented backgrounds can say the same, which is unfortunate. So I want to talk about the pieces at play here. So we have a black man telling us that security has been following him around the library. Security maintains that he's never seen him before, and so this for me called into question that if other security guards in the past have followed the patron around and he just thinks like, this is this guy again. So I said this once in Dr. Cook's class that I've been black my entire life, and so when what you're experiencing is racism. I know it when patrons have this certain tone with me and they try to tell me how to do my job, or they have this little laugh that they do as though I'm not smart enough to understand what they're essentially not even saying, because you got to read minds in this field sometimes. And so I've been followed around a store. To this day, I follow the rules I learned as a child to never put my hands in my pocket while I'm in a store, or people might think I'm stealing, or walking back and forth too frequently. We just know. Second piece here is policing. So we have to reimagine in this field in particular what it looks like to actually be committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion. The first step cannot be calling backup or threatening to call the police. How people in the building value patrons is an extension of how I see they value me as an employee. So if you're consistently, if I as a person of color am consistently bearing witness to incidents like this, I consider this a form of bullying and harassment. And now we're getting back around here. So with the amount of bodies present during the incident, I would consider that bullying for the patron. Threats to call the police are essentially a silencing tactic for patrons who are trying to voice some type of concern. And this feels like bullying to me. Again, what does this say about how people of color librarians are valued in their buildings? And so this brings me to my last point of tone policing. So in the other librarian's report on the incident, I believe she described him as like irate or something. It was like I can't remember the word, but it indicated that she thought that he was being aggressive towards me. But as I stated earlier, he was not yelling at me. He was yelling about the situation, which you can definitely catch me doing when I'm completely fed up about something. And so there's a Fader article from 2016 by Eternity Martis called "The Politics of Being Black and Loud." And the subheading says, "Black people have been profiled, policed, and even killed for the noise they make. But what if you listen to what they're actually saying?" So this article goes on to describe the writer's experience with being black in a white space. In this case, it's a predominantly white institution. She describes incidents that have hit the news, such as Jordan Davis being killed by Michael Dunn when he refused to turn down his music, the book club of 10 black women who were kicked off of a Napa Valley train because they were too loud. And time again, black folks being loud is seen as threatening. And so to quote the article, she says, "Black noise can easily be dismissed as antagonistic, abrasive, and futile, but it is survival. It forces people to acknowledge black experiences and oppression, and it is loud, even when no one wants to hear it. But the thing with noise is that even if you try, you can't block it out. Eventually, you have to listen." And I think that goes back to what my colleagues have said about having voices and people listening to them and taking up for them and creating safe spaces for them to be in while they do this work in libraries.